Good night. This is the Cutting Edge on RFM. We'll be there next Wednesday night. Enough things are going on, may I tell you? Earthquake in Italy. 100 odd people gone. Them still a search. Taliban invade American University in Afghanistan. Terror attack in Australia. And we are party in Jamaica. Jamaica, very unique place in Earth. Believe you me, very unique. More ways than one. Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. Start out with some African music. Yes, you know, African music. Still a flourish. And you know, it a influence enough things you know. And we are talking the other night, I say, so you some African music now the dance hall, you know. Yeah, man, the beat. Go and penetrate the dance hall. And the clothes. It's just because certain ones don't start wear in America yet, but watch and see what's going to happen. Watch and see what's going to happen, man. Mark it down your ear, Muta said. The African music go and penetrate the dance hall and the style, the fashion in the dance hall. So people will look on it like, where that you have on? You understand? This is the Cutting Edge at RFM going into Africa again. Fakole, out of the Ivory Coast, may I tell you, man. The man have a down part, you know, so me see me in Ivory Coast and me have to see me in Holland again to really make him penetrate me full with him style of music, man. The man, sweet, man. Will I tell you about this brethren here? Taking Jaffa Cole out of Cote d'Ivoire, and I tell you, so we see him perform in a Cote d'Ivoire, and as a matter of fact, me and him go a one interview in a one studio where they do live performance. But you see, when I see the bridge in Holland the other day, trust me, man. So we're going to give you our next one at this bridge, you know. Because the African, them have the reggae part, you know. You believe a joke where I make the African, them have the reggae part. I mean, I tell you, say, you think it's only the reggae? Watch and see about the dance a little more. Yes, watch and see. Great album from this bridge, you know, man. May I tell you. So, a bridge named Denton Christie. Him same car was stolen. Him same seat in a Ocherios. But him getting a run around by Ocherios police. So I don't know what I must do now. I don't know where I must do now. If I get a run around by the police, meaning what? Him same seat in a Ochi. Him saw the car in Ochi. He's getting a run around by the police. In other words, maybe the police no want to take it serious. If him see the car in a Ochi, when did they fire from the car, him couldn't identify the person. I don't understand where my try said to me. Maybe the police thing him try emphasize. Him car was stolen. He saw it in Ocherios and him getting a run around by the Ocherios police. Well, brethren, don't run around with them. Sound like you want to run around. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you, brethren. I don't know what to tell you. If you see the car in Ocherios, was it parked when you see it? Or you did see somebody drive it through the square? I don't know. But I hope you get back your car. That I love the thing for a man thief your car and your seat, you know. You stand up a car and you see me car there, your car do not mount it. It's a terrible thing. A really terrible thing. You know. Anyway, and I'm more somebody note. We want to, if you don't know yet, we're going to tell you this, that Felix Deadly Edley passed away Sunday night. For those of you who don't know who him is, he is a saxophonist. Long before there was a Dean Fraser, there was a Deadly Edley. He used to play with Beverly's in the studio. He played upon Bob Marley's first song, Judge Not, and many other hits. Hit Pantapa Hit, Dancing Mood, John Holt Music them, the music tour with Roots Radix. I think one time we did on a tour Me and Israel Vibration did a tour 1 year, and he was the saxophonist with Root Radix, because Root Radix used to tour with, well, them still a tour with Israel Vibration, with a long stint with Israel Vibration on the road, and Deadly was part of that tour. Well, in Passway, you know, him sick from a little while now, you know, Wellington town, man. So we just want the people them know that Deadly Edley, the saxophonist, Passway on Sunday. This is the cutting edge, and I refer, we will go back in the Africa region again and feature him with Ken Boot. Here goes. Tune that is popular in Jamaica. Ken Boot, sing it. But you know, so I'm tempted to play the original version of that song, yeah? Yeah, man, by the original artist. This is a third session of the same tune, yeah? African brethren from the continent meeting the Jamaican brethren. Is it because I'm black? Cora night, you know. Me I tell you, man. Cora sounds sweet on the music, man. That spur, that revolutionary mind that would have carried us further into self-reliance and all the things that is necessary for a race to go through. But we get diverted, man, somewhere between McDonald's and the tear-up jeans them. Somewhere between the false fingernails and the false eyelashes. We get diverted between the bleaching of the skin and the perming of the ear. May I tell you, what else can black people do to themselves for sure say them not love themselves? I mean, we don't know. What else can black people actually do to themselves for sure the world say we not love ourselves? We have done so many things, yet still a lot of us waiting for that day, that blessed day of this someone who going to come out of the sky and save we. You know, Sizzla say, the white man, God can't save you from white man oppression. But many will hold on upon that, our Lord and Savior. And even the white man nowadays now accept him own lie. You can't believe that. White people nowadays now accept them own lie, though. Because the majority of countries that has been progressive and stable, the least amount of crimes, is countries where, I'm not talking about Europe now. We're talking about Europe now. The countries in Europe that is economically stable, politically stable, them economics is moving in the right direction. Them less and less falling for them same lie where them give the world about Jesus and God and all these things. But black people now, it's more and more black people are holding on that. You can't believe that. Them throw it over that side and we are grabbing on it more than them. And when we look on for them country, we see them the families happy more than the families in the West, in a way we call the West Indies and Africa. Them economically more stable than the families in the Caribbean and in Africa. Them understand environment and food security. Meanwhile, we still have struggle about GMO and all them things there. A lot of countries in Europe ban that. And those who don't ban it, make sure so them put that on a label that you can have a choice. We see Obama the other day give the light, the go ahead, say label GMO food coming out of America. But what about the seed them where they already in a Jamaica, the GMO seed them where you know that time when we go in the farm store them, we see a whole little rack with pure Jamaican seed. Now you can't say you see no Jamaican seed again. When you look, you see these plastic bag full of GMO, and you don't have no choice again. They make sure them don't give you no choice. So you have to actually go foreign now, go get organic seed. Sweet Jamaican seed, pumpkin seed, melon seed, okra. All of the seed them were weeded Havana, so pop chow. Very difficult to get them. No, until you see some little corn now, where 3-4 generations, you have to mask the corn them. Just like how we have to go mask the herb seed them. A long time I tell you, you know, and you know, believe me, you know. All the ganja man them, you know, only save the ganja seed them, you know, put them in a some drum pan, or put them in a some paint pan, and mask it, because little more you can't take it to the bank. You can carry the seed them to the bank and get a loan. Yeah, man. So we are saying, we are all on this thing, this religion thing, like say, I mean, how much more you can do with it? How much more you can do with it? Twist it, turn it, bend it, shape it, to make it look like you. Change your white God to a black God, you know. Tell yourself say you're Israelite, tell yourself say you're Jew, tell yourself you're Hebrew, all of them things there. I will keep telling yourself all of them things there, you know, in the religious manifestation. And then most of us refuse to talk about Africa in its indigenous manifestation. We go up on the peripheral religious perspective of Africa. And then the indigenous perspective of Africa, we don't want to accept it or even look on it. Because them carry it to in such a way that we reject it just like how we reject how we stay. You know, it's a weird thing. So white people now, I look on the whole thing now and I say, all right, enough is enough now. We give them that, we can't show it now and go tend to our own business. Yeah, we can tend to our own business now and, you know, stabilize ourselves. Make them go and jump up about, you know, there's a reward in heaven and when you die, what might happen and all these things. How much time you're going to do the same thing, the same way all the while, I expect to get a different result. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen doing the same thing, same way all the while and expect to get a different result. And we have been doing the same thing, same way all the while for almost hundreds of years. And the thing I get worse. It'll get worse. The more we pray, the more the thing I get worse. Listen to this. Listen to this. Believe you me, listen to this.
I don't think hell exists. I happen to believe in life after death, but I don't think it's got a thing to do with reward and punishment. Religion is always in the control business. And that's something people don't really understand. It's in the guilt-producing control business. And if you have heaven as a place where you're rewarded for your goodness and hell as a place where you're punished for your evil, then you sort of have control of the population. And so they create this fiery place, which has quite literally scared the hell out of a lot of people throughout Christian history. Mm-hmm. And it's part of a control tactic.
But wait a minute, you're saying that hell, the idea of a place under the earth or somewhere where you're tormented for an eternity, is actually an invention of the church?
I think the church fired its furnaces hotter than anybody else. But I think there's a sense in most religious life of reward and punishment in some form. The church doesn't like for people to grow up because you can't control grown-ups. That's why we talk about being born again. When you're born again, you're still a child. The people don't need to be born again. They need to grow up. They need to accept their responsibility for themselves and the world.
What do you make of the theology, which is quite prominent these days in America, which is that there is one guaranteed way not to go to hell, and that is to accept Jesus as your personal Savior?
Yeah, I grew up in that tradition. Every church I know claims that we are the true church, and they have some ultimate authority. We have the infallible Pope. We have the inerrant Bible. The idea that the truth of God can be bound in any human system, by any human creed, by any human book, is almost beyond imagination for me. I mean, God is not a Christian. God is not a Jew or a Muslim or a Hindu or a Buddhist. All of those are human systems which human beings have created to try to help us walk into the mystery of God. I honor my tradition. I walk through my tradition. But I don't believe my tradition defines God. I think it only points me to God.
You and I are emerging people, not fallen people. Our problem is not that we are born in sin. Our problem is we do not yet know how to achieve being fully human. The function of the Christ is not to rescue the sinners, but to empower you and to call you to be more deeply and fully human than you've ever realized there was the potential within you to be. Maybe salvation needs to be conveyed in terms of enhancing your humanity rather than rescuing you from it.
Life is a startling and wondrous experience. And eventually, I think we're going to discover that God is unfolding through the life of our consciousness and our self-consciousness and is not a parent figure up in the sky. But I believe because I'm related to something that is not bound by time and space, that I will share in whatever God's eternity is.
So the children of the slave master who inculcate and beat this idea in our mind is now recognizing something else now. A lot of these children is growing up now and realizing that their parents was lying. So them take a diversion, a different turn. And when you look on their society is void. The majority of Japanese don't believe in those things. The majority of people in Sweden, Switzerland, Norway, you name it. The majority of them people don't believe in what we believe in. And what we believe in, our believe that, and what them give if we believe in. And when we want to believe in what we supposed to believe in, we think there are some little weird things where we are believing that far. And it's that carry through thousands of years before any European land on the shores of Africa. We was going through as a people with own institutions, we had our own economic situation, family structure, which is the basis of all society, was intact. Now the family structure has been broken down by many things. Broken down. And we are trying to fix it, but we don't know how to fix it because we don't want to go forward to, I yet to say roots. We don't want to go back to the roots. And we don't want the memory before slavery. That is what we have to go. Before slavery, not in slavery, because in slavery them start to create that breaking away of the family structure where them breed. It's like a breeding ground for more Africans to be more slaves. And the family structure get breakdown up to this day. Most of the things them where are going in Jamaica now with young people is inherently connected to the breaking down of the family structure, and the society allow that to happen. The society allow the family structure to break down because the only way you can divide and rule the people them is to set up a system that do incorporate family. So when we look on how the society set up that's now, it's very difficult for you to go back and tell people about go back to family when the economic situation in them life does not or is not conducive to any family structure. And the people them who in our family who can do it and make the family build up, they have to do things where it's outside the law of the country. The law of the country bind you to a situation. And I bet you any money I bet you any money in Jamaica, and I don't do no poll. I don't know if this can be what you call justified. I bet you any money. Say criminal take care of them family more than most people were obey the law. That's a serious thing. I mean, I just say that. I don't have no valid what them call poll. I didn't do no poll, but I bet you any money. Say the criminal them take care of them family more than the man who choke up himself and go to work every day and don't have no work too. Because you can't say a criminal don't have no work, he might have work. It's just that the work is unlawful kind of work. But we find that the family get broke down. And the family structure get broke down in Jamaica. Terrible. When you look at where we are going in Jamaica, terrible thing. But meanwhile, we there wait for some savior out of the sky to come put back the family together and get things right and properly. The same guy will give the religion will break up your family. And we have said that non-apologetically. The same guy or guys will give you a religion, will break up the family structure. Because we did have our own perspective in Africa that did keep the family together. That's why Hillary Clinton years ago could have made an album name, It Takes a Family, It Takes a Village to Raise a Child. Is Africa she get that from? That is an African proverb, it takes a village to raise a child. I should make a whole concept around that. But we forget that it take a village to raise a child because nobody no business with nobody again. Them have in some apartment building blocks. You don't even know who live next door, yo. You don't even know who live next door. You come home, you go to your bed, you get up and go to work. You don't know the person because you not see him when him come home and you not see him when him go to bed. You not see him when him leave a morning time. So there's no connection there. You can't let your picnic with the neighbor again. First time you could have said, you go out, you're going to leave the picnic with the person next door. You can't let again. Because the man over there could have look on your picnic for a long time, whether it's male or female. You could have look on the picnic a long time and let the picnic over there, so and that is the end of that. So the family, and when the Africans say family, the Africans talk about a village or a community of people that care for each other. Care for each other, but that get moved away now. Watch a man. People go out and have them picnic on a Sunday with some box of, we don't know it's why that the box. I eat some things I know where it's not healthy. But the way all the things set you now, we don't have no time to talk about view health again until the doctor tell us we're sick and then we start to work with health. But normally, most Jamaicans now watch them health. Them not no time for that. You understand? Them not no time for say, why I'm not going to eat that, because maybe it will cause certain things. Because the society not set it that we even think away there. And you know you need education in a whole heap of different things. And if you can't get the education to maintain a certain way, it is incumbent on the government and the people who's elected to put certain things in place that you can be aware of the situation that you find yourself in. If you do this or if you don't do that. But with the advent of the Americanization of we eating habit, the Americanization of the dress code, the Americanization of the music, you name it, man. We don't have no concept now of what is it that is necessary to bring back the family together. We don't know what can be done to alleviate the stress and the burden of the society the system that placed certain things in place through the colonial masters from them time till now. And we either the grip right and don't know. Well, I tell you, if we could have really just understand our Africanness, we would have found our humanity. And in our finding our humanity, we would have found our divinity. Because it's true, and we keep saying it, and we will say it over and over. It's true, our humanity we're going to find with divinity. We have to find the divinity in our humanity. Because there's nowhere else you're going to find that. And because we were taught that the divinity is outside over there, so. And we're going feet like a rabbit around down a carrot in our one game. We still feel a burden, an unnecessary burden for our back. So, where we are to that far? We are saying all of these things, we say, we need a Sankofa, a going back and reclaim and understand that we are the ones we have been waiting for. Yeah, we are the ones we have been waiting for. It's not nobody else we are waiting for, it's we are waiting for. You better know that this is the cutting edge and RFS. Only in the rock saying no more action blocks for me. No more action block. And it's like the politician want to put up an action block every day. Sell me out. Because that's what action block is if you don't know. Action block is what them used to go in at the square of the town, build up something looking like a stage, and then have the African them parade most of the time naked, and the white man stand up there and say, all right, we give you 10 shilling for that one there. And the man say, no, we give you 11 shilling. Going one, going twice, sold. And them come up there, come inspect you, looking at your ears, look how your things them look. Open your mouth, look if you have enough, you look like your teeth them. And then you're gone. And if him name Brian, him say your name Brian too. So when you run well now, if him buy in a cent and you run we go to Trelawney and a white man catch you and him ask you, what your name? And you say Brian. Him say, oh yeah, Brian. You belong to Brian from St. Anne, and then carry you go back. That's how it go. Serious thing. Meanwhile, them have the woman them there. A ton cattle, breeding, cattle. Terrible thing.
Women should be a priority, respected and upheld in society, given all the proper notoriety, never used or abused by authority figures, like the media that trashes us, play down the hype that constantly bashes our image. TV, movies, and the videos use women's bodies to create a sick sideshow, too many times seen as a sex symbol, no real intelligence, just a brainless bimbo, not taken seriously for who she needs to be, a human being with the right to be free, not misinterpreted so much of the time. A no means yes, only in a man's mind. Women who struggle and shout, take back the night. How often used by others in the wrong light. The daily violence of racial misconstrued. It is a fact of life, and it could happen to you. Could be walking down the street, looking up the street you happen to meet. High on drugs or whatever case, they pull a knife. A hold a gun to your face. You cry, yo, can't you see I'm a man? But they just laugh and get down with their funky scam. You ever wonder, can I still call myself a man? Maybe the plight of women you can now understand. And check our history. Correctly line and define our identity. No more distortion. Here but in a true proportion. Erase the guise of lies that had you dissing me. Check our past and what we gave humanity. Life from the womb of creation. What formed the earth, the mother of all habitation. And from her loins the beginning population. Don't call her Eve, others call her Lucy. Don't try to blame her for the problems of society. But since we know that it was men who wrote the books, perhaps we need to re-examine. Take another look. into Africa. The black land they call Al-Qaeda. Here is the story. The teachers of our former glory. Of queens and warriors, women strong and brave. Refuse to be subdued.
You know, we have to stop that tune and play it again. Believe you me, we have to stop the tune and play it again. We get tricked. Definitely we get tricked. I have to admit so we get tricked. Because the only way you can really come out of the trick is if you admit say it's a trick. You understand? If you can't admit say it's a trick, you're going to always be tricked.
Women should be a priority, respected and upheld in society, given all the proper notoriety, never used or abused by authority figures like the media that trashes us, play down the hype that constantly bashes our image. TV, movies, and the videos use women's bodies to create a sick sideshow. Too many times seen as a sex symbol. No real intelligence, just a brainless bimbo. Not taken seriously for who she needs to be. A human being with the right to be free. Not misinterpreted so much of the time. A no means yes, only in a man's mind. Women who struggle and shout, take back the night, are often viewed by others in the wrong light. The daily violence or rape, don't misconstrue. It is a fact of life, and it could happen to you. Could be walking down the street, a gang of miscreants you happen to meet, high on drugs or whatever the case. They pull a knife or hold a gun to your face. You cry, yo, can't you see I'm a man? But they just laugh and get down with their funky scam. You left to wonder, can I still call myself a man? Maybe the plight of women you can now understand. And check our history. Correctly line and define our identity. No more distortion. Here but in a true proportion. Erase the guise of lies that had you dissing me. Check our past and what we gave humanity. Life from the womb of creation. What formed the earth, the mother of all habitation. And from her loins the beginning population. Some call her Eve, others call her Lucy. Some try to blame her for the problems of society. But since we know that it was men who wrote the books, perhaps we need to re-examine. Take another look into Africa. The black land they call Al-Qaeda. Here is the story. The teachers of our former glory. Of queens and warriors, women strong and brave. Refused to be subdued or taught how to behave. They clearly understood the power within comes from God and should not be dictated by men. Some rule the nation seated on a throne. Some led in battle fighting to protect their home. Some study nature, science is appealing. Religion and the arts reflect their deepest feeling. Music, the list is practically endless. The contributions we have made are quite timeless. In almost every category you will find us singing or playing instruments. Upon the world we make our mark, we make a serious dent. We have influence and sound. We offer soul that nowhere else can be found. Touching the feelings that are rich and profound. Words, let's talk about some writers who use the pen and pages weapons of a fighter. Educating to the poetry and prose, the essay and the novel and the story that throws a message with a rhythmical spear into our conscious minds to make us adhere to life and its reality. Uncovering the clouds of mystery, creating hope or fulfilling our destiny. Check out the world, check out your nation. No respect for women is a no-win situation. We got to raise it to an up-iration. Keep your love for women on an Irie meditation. Cause women are the teachers and the healers of the land. Y'all know what I'm saying, so come on and take a stand to love and protect all the women in your life. Your mother and your sister and your daughter and your wife, your great-grandmother, significant others, and even all the women you don't know from one another. And the world's gonna be a whole better place. But so much more important, we may save the race. So women should be a priority, respected and upheld in society, given all the proper notoriety, never used or abused by authority. Women should be a priority. 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 Women.
Cutting edge, same Mutabaruka, same IRFM, same
yes, slide on bar, same
and Mr. Robbie, same
stay tuned RFM, Mutabaruka, cutting edge,
same.
He was her only child, her baby boy. She was was his second daughter, a father's pride and joy. Somebody's mother, brother, best friend, sister, lover. Maybe an A1 student running, hiding, taking cover. The women gather, crying tears that fill a million oceans. It doesn't matter where you're living. The women gather, crying tears that fill a million oceans. People say, not in this neighborhood. It doesn't happen here. Our kids have everything. What do we have to fear? But what about the ones who say this happens every day? Drugs and violence take our children. How much more death can come our way? The women gather, crying tears that fill a million oceans. It doesn't matter where you're living. The women gather, crying tears that fill a million oceans. Don't you know? Some bullets find their targets. Bombs can take you right on cue. Some in the hands of babies or officials and their crew. Claim the brother had a gun. She did the profile in my book. Running, hiding, taking cover. Didn't take the time to look. Somebody's mother, brother, best friend, sister, lover. The women gather, crying tears that fill a million oceans. It doesn't matter where you're living. The women gather, crying tears that fill a million oceans. It doesn't matter where you're living. The women gather, crying tears that fill a million oceans. It doesn't matter where you're living. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you're living.
Every day, millions of bubbles foam to defend the world's best beer. Why? Because great beer doesn't like air. Savor the quality, crisp taste that only Heineken offers. Respect the bubbles. Discover more behind the star. Heineken, open your world. The 18% to drink. Enjoy responsibly.
Big man thing. Are you really cook every Sunday?
Yes. The kids say my cooking tastes better than wife, you know.
Wait. Yeah, big chef.
I just use the right ingredients. You see this? Kendall vegetable oil, no other oil in my cooking. And it's only Kendall coconut milk good enough for my rice and peas.
Kendall vegetable oil and coconut milk. That's your secret.
Kendall vegetable oil and coconut milk is only the beginning. This is the end.
Daddy, the dinner nice.
You see that?
Kendall, the taste of quality.
On 2016, oh yes, a regional one done I say better.
CV Pan 2016, Regional 1, August 27th at Independence Park, Black River, St. Elizabeth. Admission free. Hosted by Dustin Shepherd and Bada Bling. Performances by Kevin Downswell, Ding Dong, and Busy Signal. Kiddies Village, enough prizes and giveaways. Get your pan chicken for only $300. Powered by CB Foods.
It's a World Cup qualifier, Jamaica versus Haiti, Tuesday, September 6, 8:30 p.m. at the National Stadium. Come see the Reggae Boys face our neighbors, both aiming for final round qualification to Russia. Tickets go on sale August 29. Grandstand 6,500 and 5,500. Bleachers 1,200. See the Observer for ticket outlets. The Haitians are tough, but we are moving on. Forward march! Sponsors: Digicel, STF, Water, and Quartz.
It's been a long time coming. Footloose, big 10th anniversary. Come celebrate with us on Saturday, August 27th at Mascot. Surprise performance by one of the hottest entertainers from the 90s. Ladies, you're 2 for 1 before 12. Admission, 1,000 pre-sold, 1,200 at the gate. Get your tickets at Firm Fitness Club, Triple Century, Collectibles, Extras, Gina's Pharmacy, and Avery Beauty Concept. Sponsored by Firm Fitness Club, Chargers, Batteries, and more. Chad Auto Sales, Irie, Cool, Things Fabric, Flawless Production, and Sign Express. It's Footloose.
When the sun goes down and you're stepping out, step up to gold, Rum Bar Gold. Age 4 years for premium taste, Rum Bar Gold. Come join the fans, they'll tell you it's worth its weight in gold. Sip up the
Love Foundation presents Back to School Fun Day. Saturday, August 27th, Anderson Park, Brownstown. Gates open at 12 noon. Face painting, rides, scholarship giveaways, and other prizes and attractions. Back to School supplies will be distributed. Music by Illusion Sound and DJ Mark Movements. Addison Park, Brownstown. Saturday, August 27th. Back to School Fun Day. Hosted by Curvy Diva Unique. Sponsored by IRI FM.
Cool Oasis is mad. The Cool Oasis giveaway madness is on. 4 lucky customers will win $4,000 worth of free gas every Friday from now until October 21 from a Cool Oasis service station. All you have to do is purchase a minimum of $2,800 worth of fuel. You'll then get a chance to win a really cool gift right away from the grab bag. Then complete an entry form with the slogan Cool Oasis, your travel's haven, and drop it in the box provided at each Cool Oasis service station. Tune in to IRI FM every Friday between 6 a.m. and 5 p.m. to see if you are one of the lucky winners. Cool Oasis giveaway madness brought to you in association with IRI FM, authorized under Section 58.3 of the Betting, Gaming and Lotteries Act. Conditions apply.
Yo, brother! Oh, sir! You know it's a life really good after all.
What's good?
Like when you link with friends and laugh till a week.
How you party till morning with the company you keep?
Are you buy red stripe by the bucket or crate?
Are the dancers all out to the songs where you play?
People all the vibes and get it right.
Cause we are cool, be a great friends.
Red stripe!
Always connect with what's good. Red Stripe. 18 years and older. Drink responsibly.
It's back to school time with Flow Schooling. Come out on Sunday, August 28th for the Back to School event of the year with live performances from Bugle, Kevin Downswell, Ding Dong, and Chris Martin. Get huge discounts on all school supplies, plus free school bags, free health checks, fantastic deals on phones, internet, and cable from Flow with prizes and giveaways all day long. Admission $400 mobile credit. Tickets available at Flow stores in Kingston, Portmore, and Spanish Town. Flow Schooling, Sunday, August 28th, 2016. Jam World Portmore. Gates open 10 a.m. See you there.
Kingston, Jamaica. It's UTech Jamaica's 16th annual Community Service and Expo. This Thursday, August 25, under the theme, Youth Empowerment, Building Better Communities. Join me, Elise Kelly, and the IRFM broadcast crew as we broadcast the Easy Skanking Show live from the Community Service and Development Division of UTech, Hope Road, Kingston, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. That's a live broadcast of the Easy Skanking Show.
Yeah, this is the Cutting Edge on IRFM. So we reached this part of the show now where we make you listen carefully.
Racism emerges really in the 16th and 17th, particularly the 17th century. Europeans were enslaving and had for some centuries been enslaving people both of Africa and of the New World.
History of racism in the Western world is broadly associated with slavery as the early form of colonialism. And it's in that context that something called race is created, which essentially means that certain people who are defined as non-Europeans find themselves ruled and governed by Europeans.
For people in America in the 17th and the 18th century, race was a fact of life. And I think that racism is something that comes out of that interaction of necessity. This isn't people cooking up racism in their laboratory or in their study and then going out into the world to apply it. In a sense, white people, blacks and Indians, worked out their ideas of race in proximity with each other on the hoof.
The British don't become slave traders and slavers because they are racist. They become racist because they use slaves for great profit in the Americas and devise a set of attitudes towards black people that justifies what they've done. The real engine behind the slave system is economics. Africans are items of trade. They're things that are bought, that are sold, that are bequeathed, that are inherited. They're like other items of trade. And once you've got that established, both on the slave ships, of which there are thousands leaving British ports, and once you've got that established on the plantations, and once you've got that established as a basis for expanding British wealth, how can you argue that somehow or other the great inferiority of black people isn't built into fundamental cultural values of the British?
Hawkins was perhaps the first English trader to actually kidnap slaves from Tagrim, which is a couple of miles from Freetown, and forcibly took slaves away from Sierra Leone. The sad thing is that this man was even made a knight. When we were in school, we read about Sir John Hawkins as if he was such a good person, he was such a righteous person, somebody who had contributed positively to, the creation of the British Empire. It was only much later that some of us learned with regret that, in fact, he was not only involved in the slave trade, but he actually captured, slaves.
He established places down by Government Wharf, what we call Government Wharf now.
Over time, it became an industry, and a lot of English traders and a lot of Sierra Leonean rulers, particularly those along the coast, became heavily involved in the slave trade. And we have, for instance, several islands off the coast of Sierra Leone that were prominent slave trading posts, like Bonds Island, for instance, where there were English force, other European South force, even Americans were very heavily involved in the slave trade from Bonds Island.
Which say that come for buy. The number there in a group iron, the number we want, he take up. He put on this fire room open. The banner
and of course, we know the way they were taken. Captured, tied up, chained, and thrown into the ships.
So it was a very bad experience for the slaves from the moment they were captured up to the time they reached the so-called New World.
And then those who survived and did arrive, had to be put for sale. And then when they were bought, they had to undergo all kinds of indignities.
One great woman could cost 2 man price. Sometimes they work for you, not the garden. Not come back, they work for you, they born picking for you. Now for that, they pay 2 times for one great woman. When you go to come collect tuna,
At a conservative estimate, over 11 million Africans were transported across the Atlantic. Manacled and packed together like animals, at least 2 million died during the infernal voyage known as the Middle Passage.
Slaves are seen as deracinated people who did not belong, who were natally alienated. That is, they had no rights of birth, and are seen as people who had been torn from another society, but not socialized into the new one. So they were socially dead, so to speak. They were seen as people without honor, which is a degraded condition. The value of this for the master is that the master had absolute power over the slave, regardless of what the laws may say. They had rights of life and death.
A situation grows up where thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of these black or dark-skinned people are being kept down without rights and kept at work night and day by a system of surveillance with whips and cutlasses. And of course, there is the fear that they will try and rise up, that they'll try to run away, and that when they do that, they're going to slaughter the masters and the overseers and their wives in their beds, and really that any white person will be seen as a potential enemy by the blacks. And so you get this mutual fear between the two groups, and this tends to consolidate racial feeling. And the only way to keep these slave societies even minimally secure was to arm all the white men, and even indeed some of the white women too.
So you're there in your plantation manor, you're there in your settler outpost. What are the natives doing? Sort of classic line from these movies. The natives are restless. What's going on? Those drums in the background. There's the idea that these people are sort of getting together and they're going to invade us, they're going to attack us, and it's a kind of projection basically. In other words, you've invaded their countries, you've subordinated them. There's a long history of colored perils. There's the red peril called Red Indians. There's the yellow peril. There's the black peril. There's this idea of the non-white other. And the non-white other is threatening, the non-white other is scary, the non-white other may be coming to attack. And it comes out of, you could say, a bad conscience in part, a sort of subconscious recognition perhaps of the kind of things that have been done to the non-white other.
In the early 16th century, from Chile in the south to Florida in the north, this non-white other was no more than vermin to be exterminated. The Dominican monk Bartolomé de las Casas was eyewitness to countless atrocities against the native populations. His account reads like a catalogue of genocide.
The mainland in the region known as Florida. The Spaniards murdered many, as is their custom, in order to strike terror into the hearts of these people. They made their lives an utter misery, treating them as so many beasts of burden. In another large town, the butchers put the whole town to the sword, young and old, chiefs and commoners, not even the children were spared. The butcher-in-chief arranged for a large number of natives in the area to have their noses, lips, and chins sliced from their faces. They were then sent away in unspeakable agony and all running with blood to act as walking testimony to the great deeds and holy miracles performed by these dauntless missionaries of the Holy Catholic faith.
The things that Las Casas witnessed, particularly on Hispaniola or in Cuba, these incredible crimes, these incredible attacks on Indians, disembowelings and burnings, rapes and whatever else, I'm sure that level of violence is something that you could have witnessed in different places in the 17th, the 18th century, in other parts of the Spanish Empire. But it was a peculiarly awful moment that Las Casas saw as the Spanish got to the Americas and tried literally to work the Indians to death.
The reports of Las Casas caused enough unease for the Council of the Indies, the Spanish administrators of the New World, to call a debate at Valladolid in Spain in 1550. The debate concerned not just the mistreatment of Indians, but whether they could be categorized as human at all. In contest with Las Casas, the champion of the native populations was the Jesuit Juan Ginés de Sepulveda.
By this time, the Spanish have been in the Americas for about 50 years. And during that time, the brutalities carried out by the conquistadors had reached such heights that it caused some alarm. And out of that context came this particular debate. On the one hand, there was this idea that the Indians had souls, they could be Christianized, and they should be treated not as servants, not as forced laborers, but as people under the protectorate of the Spanish. On the other side of the debate was the idea that perhaps these are not people with souls, perhaps these are people who are natural slaves. And in that context, they could be coerced to produce labor.
What Las Casas wanted to do was to change the policy of the Spanish crown towards the Indians. So paradoxically, he was able to get slavery of Indians banned. That's something which the Spanish crown bans, outlaws. And by 1542, the laws have been changed to ensure that there can no longer be Indian slaves. But Las Casas also suggests that the labor shortfall in America can be made up with black slaves from Africa, which I think he later regretted, later in life.
It's a key moment insofar as the reflection on the system that produces race is there in that debate. The system that produces race, which will produce race over the next 200-300 years, is that colonial system, which takes this diverse range of peoples and defines them as Indian, forces that category on them. And it's in that context that you begin to see two things that go hand in hand with the development of racism. On the one hand, the institutions that keep in place exploited populations, oppressed populations, and in that context, the debates that then take place as to what kinds of populations they are. These debates begin with lawyers, they move to anthropologists, and then they move on to biologists, always debating within that context of colonialism, which fixes those people as objects of investigation.
Thursday, 11th October. Thus far and no land. Another 12 hours will decide.
A crucial moment in the racial history of the whole Atlantic world and of the world is Christopher Columbus, but not the first voyage, which everybody knows about, but the third voyage in 1498. Columbus sailed south to Sierra Leone, where, as he noticed, the people are very black, perfectly black. And then he sailed due west from Sierra Leone, and he wound up near Trinidad and the northern coast of South America. And he reported that the people there were white with blonde hair. And that shouldn't have happened according to the prevailing theories of skin color in the whole classical world in the medieval period. What happened with Columbus is that people started to realize that you could stay on the same latitude and get radically different skin colors. And if that was the case, then there had to be some other explanation for skin color other than geography. So that's where you begin to get the emergence of biological theories of difference in skin color. And that leads eventually to racist theories of differences in skin color.
So a view emerges, originally identified as pre-Adamism, that maybe there are multiple origins, and that less civilized, more primitive human beings have an origin that is not accountable for by a biblical narrative, but are closer to the animal world. And that view then develops into a view called polygenism, that is multiple origins.
When Europeans first encountered chimpanzees, they were really struck by the similarities between what we now call chimpanzees and humans. But they called chimpanzees drills. And one of the questions that John Locke talks about in his essay concerning human understanding is the question of whether human beings have mated with drills. So the question that gets increasingly asked in the 17th century is, are African peoples what we would call the same species as Europeans? And Locke has real questions about whether we can say that they're the same species or not. And one of the explanations for African people that you start hearing in Barbados, for instance, the English colony on Barbados in the 17th century, is that black Africans are produced by the sexual union of a chimpanzee and a human being. So they're not really human, they're half animal. And this gets bound up with a whole series of prejudices about the animality of Africans, their bestiality, their sexuality is animalistic. Even in the 20th century, you get all sorts of claims about jazz music being animalistic. These are prejudices that begin to be ingrained in European culture in the 17th century in the context of what we think of as major scientific or philosophical texts.
And literary texts too. In The Tempest, whichever way you interpret Caliban, Shakespeare's weird hybrid reinforces the idea that slaves are not fully human.
Shakespeare doesn't quite know how to figure the hewer of wood and drawer of water. Is this the working class? Is this the proletariat? Is this the African? Is this the savage? Shakespeare doesn't know, and he creates Caliban.
Thou poisonous slave, got by the devil himself upon thy wicked dam, come forth!
In The Tempest, it seems to me pretty clear that Shakespeare imagined Caliban as a black slave. He has an African mother and a black devil father, and that in some ways Caliban is the first representation of the rebellious, sexually obsessed, violent, ignorant black slave.
I have used thee, filth as thou art, with human care, lodged thee in mine own cell, till thou didst seek to violate the honor of my child. What is it being done? Thou didst prevent me. I had people else this isle with Calibans.
Shakespeare presents him as somebody who will be tricked by a few baubles, not crystal meths, not crack cocaine, but by a few trinkets and some booze.
Many a Caliban might have found himself in the English plantations of America. In fact, the Tempest was partly inspired by the story of a ship which ran aground on Bermuda, where the crew then mutinied. The Sea Venture had been bound for the plantations of Virginia, a slave-holding colony in which Shakespeare himself had a financial investment.
The economic notion of the plantation as a large site of agribusiness and of a large cooperation of human labor for the arable field begins in Ireland, begins in Ulster. Of course, it was a London merchant house that wished to plant dairy and to start the plantation of Ulster at the very time that, at Shakespeare's time, towards the end of Shakespeare's life, that the Virginia Company is establishing a colony in Virginia.
The idea that the great glory days of England begin with Elizabeth, there is no successful English colony under the reign of Elizabeth. Great English imperial aggressive victories started happening in the 17th century, really under Cromwell with the growth of the empire and the conquest of Jamaica. And that's when the English also began to perceive of themselves as part of a superior white race.
Oliver Cromwell is a fierce and powerful revolutionary figure. He was a great general and commander of capitalism that transformed the Atlantic, if not the whole world. This mighty vision he had of doing God's work had begun in the fens of England, where the huge hydraulic works of Van Muden in Holland are harnessed to drain the fields. So he played a role in that, and to discommon, or to remove people from their customary lands in order to produce the riches of the alluvial plains of Lincolnshire and the Norfolk Broads. He then transforms that interrelationship, shall we say, of water and land to crossing the Atlantic and to establishing the sugar plantations. He doesn't do this alone, of course. He does it with a class of people. This is why we say the capitalist class, because they hope to capitalize the land, turn the land into commodities and then into capital, and do this through the sugar plantation in the 1640s, in the very time of the English Revolution or the English Civil War. It's an amazing story of conquest, cruelty, and God.
So if you look at something like the southern states of America, up until the point of the American Civil War, the greatest amount of wealth in America was the ownership of slaves and slave labor. Now this is enormous. And it's in that process of being able to command the resources of other parts of the world, extract them for your industries and that labor, that you create this massive structural inequality.
The British become well off on the basis of the slave system. Liverpool, Bristol grow to kind of extraordinary levels of material and urban well-being because of the slave system. Lloyd's of London, the Bank of England, Barings Bank, Barclays Bank, Lord Harwood at Harwood House, stately homes left, right and centre, are absolutely rooted in the slave system. But it's a slave system that needs a justification. That is the kind of racist element in it. But the real rationale for it is profit.
The sort of laundering of slave profits, as opposed to simply the relocation of them in economic enterprises, is, I think, a very important part of the modern development of Britain. For example, I always think of Bristol, the development of Clifton and so on and so forth, absolutely tied to the slave profits from the 18th century, early 19th century slave trade.
Slavery as it existed in parts of Europe prior to this period of the Atlantic slave trade was not particularly color-coded. Yes, the slaves in Western Europe might be Slavs, but, they have the same skin color, and you couldn't tell by looking at somebody whether he was a slave or not. But, by the time you get to the West Indies in 1700 or something, you can tell by looking at somebody whether or not he or she is a slave.
The ancients, by and large, did not suffer from that form of race identification and slavery based on race, but they had their own version of it, which was that all foreigners, all non-Greeks, all outsiders, in principle, could be enslaved legitimately because they were inferior. It's not just people who are not Greek who are regarded as inferior in this sort of unalterable way, but Greek men regarded Greek women in somewhat the same way. So if you are male and Greek, you belong just by that very fact to superior categories.
To begin with, racial feeling can take simply the form of aversion, of dislike. But in the case of New World slavery, what it's doing is taking the form of domination, of exploitation, something much more coherent, something much more purposeful. It's not just a casual prejudice against people who are unlike ourselves. It's a determination to use those people who are unlike ourselves. So it's this that creates the more intense racial feeling that comes out of the widespread adoption of slavery in the plantations in the Americas.
In antiquity, defenders of the institution of slavery didn't rely on ideas of racial inferiority or skin color to justify it, but the ideas of one of the great thinkers of antiquity, who was much quoted in the Valladolid debates, would be adapted to the context of New World slavery.
Aristotle, if I could use an awful phrase, is the nigger in the woodpile, because his views were looked back to from the later medieval period onwards and cited because Aristotle was regarded as, though unfortunately he wasn't a Christian, he lived too early, nevertheless he was the next best thing. And if he said slavery was a natural phenomenon, then it probably was. But it's very important to be clear that Aristotle was not speaking in terms of external racial characteristics, color.
Genesis chapter 9, verse 25. And Noah began to be a husbandman, and he planted...
An authority even greater than Aristotle's was invoked to justify slavery: God and his good book. Genesis chapter 9, verse 25 was interpreted by Christians as divine authorization for trafficking in slaves and the ownership of plantations.
This is kind of a funny story, and from our perspective it seems sort of ridiculous, but this is taken very seriously indeed. After the flood, Noah gets out, there are still waters all around, and so Noah decides he's going to set up a vineyard. Noah gets drunk. He has 3 sons, Japheth, Shem, and Ham.
This is the Cutting Edge on RFM, a serious documentary, The Origin of Racism. That's the title of what you're listening to. The origin of racism, and them carrying you right through from the beginning to where they are now. Serious thing. The time is 12 o'clock.
Brothers and sisters, this is Chalice. Join us with respect for our national anthem. Let us stand and defend this one. Peace and love. Thank you. Eternal Father, bless our land. Guide us with thy mighty hand. Keep us free from evil powers. Do our life through countless hours. To our leaders, great defenders, grant true wisdom from above. Justice, truth, be ours forever. Jamaica, land we love. Jamaica, 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 land we love.
Experience Jamaica from a different point of view at Oceans on the Ridge, Shaw Park, Oterias. Enjoy authentic Jamaican cuisine, live daytime music, relaxing surroundings, or our nightlife and romantic sunsets. Be at ease in the breeze at Oceans on the Ridge, 974-6290.
Big ships sailing on the ocean. We don't need no commotion.
Tiles. It's a totally tile sales event at Home and Things. Enjoy massive savings on a large variety of tiles at factory direct prices. Save big on the tile brands you know and trust. Beautiful Spanish and Brazilian porcelain and ceramic tiles, all at unbelievable prices. Plus bathroom fixtures from Sedosa, American Standard, Corona, stylish Moen and American Standard faucets, doors, windows, paint, home decor, and more. Come catch the Home and Things totally tile sales event on now. Old Hope Road and Constant Spring Road.
On 2016, oh yes, a regional one done a same
CV Pan 2016, Regional 1, August 27 at Independence Park, Black River, St. Elizabeth. Admission free. Hosted by Dustin Shepherd and Bada Bling. Performances by Kevin Downswell, Ding Dong, and Busy Signal. Kiddies Village, enough prizes and giveaways. Get your pan chicken for only $300. Powered by CB Foods.
Hello, School Aid would like to thank all our partners for their support this year. Shoretime Medical Center, Sangster's Bookstores, JUTC, Heart Trust NTA, Quartz Optical, Quartz Ready Cash, Portmore Municipal Council, Jamaica Library Service, National Road Safety Council, National Library of Jamaica, Jamaica Constabulary Safety Unit, JCDC, and one-on-one educational services. And our media sponsors, the Jamaica Observer, IRI FM, and Zip FM. Thank you all from Flow. So School Aid this Sunday, August 28, 2016. Jamworth, Portmore, gates open 10 a.m.
Kingston, Jamaica. It's UTEC Jamaica's 60th annual Community Service and Expo. This Thursday, August 25, under the theme, Youth Empowerment, Building Better Communities. Join me, Elise Kelly, and the IRFM broadcast crew as we broadcast the Easy Skanking Show live from the Community Service and Development Division of UTEC, Hope Road, Kingston, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. That's a live broadcast of the Easy Skanking Show.
Noah gets out. There are still waters all around, and so Noah decides he's going to set up a vineyard. Noah gets drunk. He has 3 sons, Japheth, Shem, and Ham. Ham goes into Noah's chamber while he's lying in this inebriated state, and then takes off the sheet, looks down at Noah, and then calls in his brothers.
And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his
brothers. Says, look at our father who's lying naked, and tries to get his brothers to laugh. When Noah comes round from his stupor, he's furious, and he pronounces a curse on Ham's descendants.
And he said, Cursed be Canaan, the servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren.
So he says that Ham's son, who's called Canaan, will from then on be cursed in perpetuity, and he'll be a slave to the other 2 brothers, Shem and Japheth.
The curse of Ham was not specifically black from the beginning. There was a medieval writer representing the lords of the manor saying that peasants are the descendants of Ham. And that's why they have to serve. The word slave originally originated from Slavic. These were people who had been captured on the eastern frontiers of Europe. And it was not until about the 15th century when the Portuguese in West Africa began to specifically identify Africans with the curse.
But the idea is that one branch of the human family has been enslaved because of this curse, which Noah pronounced on Ham.
It's a kind of one-size-fits-all oppressors story, because you can decide whatever group it is that you want to enslave or oppress are the descendants of Ham, and therefore you have a biblical justification for your mistreatment of them.
Christianity it does different things at different times. In other words, there's certainly a strand of thinking in which people justify slavery by arguing that it's bringing people in Africa into Christianity and so forth.
Christianity is just one aspect of a number of different systems of thinking that would create the colonial basis for the kinds of knowledge which will be used to define non-European populations. So you move from Christianity to to liberalism, to notions of humanitarianism, to capitalism. All these kinds of interventions are part of trying to manage and make sense of what the colonial enterprise is without questioning the colonial enterprise, without questioning what Atlantic slavery is.
Christianity's role in slavery is very complex. For most of its history, it basically accepted slavery as part of the order of things. In a way, the parallel would be the attitude towards a homeless person today. I mean, we see it not as a sin or as evil, but as an unfortunate situation. And this continued right up to the middle of the 18th century, when a truly radical change took place in which some Christian thinkers began to see slavery as a sin.
Enslavement of the natives of North America was never European policy, but that didn't make life any easier for these indigenous peoples, whose relationship with the settlers would ultimately leave most of them either victimized or dead.
If you look at Native Americans from their perspective, when white people arrived, they were a disruption, they were shocking, and they were surprising in all sorts of ways. But for many Indians, they simply looked at them as another rival group. And this is one of the interesting facts about 17th century American history. From Indians' perspectives, whites were in a way a bit similar to other rival Indian nations. So perhaps you'd trade with whites, perhaps you'd make war with whites, perhaps you'd ally with the whites against another Indian nation. Indians didn't see things in white and red, if you want to put it that way, white and red terms, because the white settlements weren't powerful enough until much later in the 17th century, even into the 18th century. So they didn't see this as an invasion, as a form of genocide, in a way that would unite them as Indians against white people.
The ways and thoughts of the white men are strange.
But for all that our skins are of different hues, we are friends. Chingatpuk.
You could talk about the 18th century as a 100-year period in which Indians increasingly realized that the battle is between them and white people. And in 1763, when it became clear to a host of different Indian groups in the Midwest that the wind was changing, they launched a rebellion. It was led by an Ottawa Indian named Pontiac, laid siege to the British fort at Detroit. He didn't succeed in destroying the fort, but he got the people there very scared indeed. And it made London aware of the problem of managing Indians, especially in the Midwest. And one of the most extraordinary things that happened is that George III declared in the autumn of 1763 a line of proclamation. That's what it was called, a line of proclamation, which forbade any white settler from settling beyond the Appalachian Mountains without his explicit permission. So effectively, the idea was to put the brakes on white settlement to preserve British trading relationships with the Indians. But of course, the irony here is you've got tons of white settlers moving to America looking for land. So in effect, in 1763, this royal proclamation creates a new tension between ordinary white settlers on the ground and the crown. And it's definitely one of the contributing factors in the American Revolution. White settlers believe after 1763 that the British government doesn't support them and instead it backs the Indians. And after the American Revolution, or in the process of the American Revolution, the gloves really come off for white Americans, and the new United States is not an Indian-friendly nation in the least.
Native Americans were in an impossible situation. Side with the British, whose stronghold was Fort Detroit, and they risked the wrath of the rebel colonists based in Fort Pitt. Side with these Americans and their militiamen, and they would invite merciless retribution from the British. And as for trying to stay out of it, even if you were in Pennsylvania, a state founded by Quakers upon principles of Christian brotherly love, this too could have fatal consequences.
Now, one group that didn't pick one side or the other were the Moravian Christian Indians, who were gathered in three little communities, the most important of which was called Gnadenhutten. These Moravian Christians, there are maybe 100, 150, had tried to stay out of the war. They weren't hostile Indians. They had adopted many of the customs, the equipment, the technology of white people. They read the Bible. They sang hymns. They were, to all intents and purposes, the dream model of people back in the 17th century who wanted to convert and civilize Indians. And then a group of Pennsylvania militiamen arrived. When they had taken everything that they had that could be construed as a weapon, tools, axes, whatever, that the Indians had, which could be used against them, the militiamen got together and decided to kill every one of them. So every single Indian, in fact, the majority were women and children. I think there were around 30 men, so the rest, 60 or so, were women and children. All of them were massacred. They were brought in pairs to a hut where they were hit over the head with a cooper's mallet. And their brains were dashed out without any regard to their obviously being non-combatants. And at the end of the massacre, the white militiamen who committed it melted away. There was never any legal action taken against them. And their argument was that these Indians had tools with writing on them, or they had books, or they had implements they could only have stolen from white people. And that's the tragedy or the irony of all of this. In a way, the things that showed that those Christian Indians were civilized were used against them because these militiamen couldn't believe they belonged to them. But I think that's a tremendously evocative story for Pennsylvania, because what began as this noble experiment with white people and Indians living side by side had now turned into this most grisly kind of race war, in which the distinctions between good and bad Indian are totally erased. It goes back to one of the problems, I guess, for Americans, white settlers. What does it mean to be an American? What is there about America as a place which defines the people that live there? When the Boston Tea Party took place in December of 1773, this protest against the tea taxes which are being imposed by London, and you get these patriots running onto these ships of the British East India Company and pouring the tea into the harbour. They dressed as Indians. Now that to me is tremendously interesting, because they dressed as Indians to prove they were American. It's as if when you get past the stage of mastering Indians militarily, they become incredibly useful culturally in articulating Americanness, the idea of being American. And, there's a reason why there are cars called, the Cherokee, or the Pontiac. I mean, you line up the major Indian leaders, line up the major Indian tribes, and you can probably find a vehicle or a weapon named after one. The Apache helicopter, Tomahawk missile. You don't have to look very far to find that kind of connection.
Many people pointed out the Indian appears on the nickel, but the African appears on no coins. And so the Indian was sort of a symbol of America in a way. Not the full destiny of America was to be civilized, and Indians were to become civilized or they were to die out. But they still identified with America in a way that Africans could not be. The one thing that comes to mind looking at it over a long period of time is that one of the main distinguishing features of black-white relations in the United States has been the idea of the so-called one-drop rule, purity of blood. To be white, you could not have an unknown black ancestor. It wasn't always enforced, but this was the rule. Indian blood and intermarriage with Indians, going back to John Rolfe and Pocahontas, was not taboo. So that when Oklahoma became a state, it was interesting, the Oklahoma Constitution, there were a number of part Indian figures who were involved in the setting up of the Oklahoma state government when it was in 1910. And the law said there can be no marriage between whites and blacks, and no marriage between Indians and blacks. But they left the Indians and whites to freely intermarry.
The mid-18th century is considered a pivotal historical moment when the Enlightenment dream of the brotherhood of man, championed by philosophers like David Hume, Voltaire, Rousseau, and the encyclopedists, came to prominence. This period gave rise to the ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity, principles that fueled the American and French revolutions. But these popular democratic principles were never universally applied. Choose any intellectual giant of the Enlightenment, and almost without exception, you will have chosen a proponent of equal rights who really believes that some men are more equal than others.
Kant is seen as, one of the most important philosophers of the modern period of the past few hundred years. And he's certainly seen as the most important moral philosopher, in that the crucial idea is this idea of personhood, and you respect the personhood of others, you don't diss other people. And yet simultaneous with that, Kant also has these writings in anthropology and physical geography, in which he basically outlines a kind of four-tiered level of human beings. It's basically a racially restrictive view of personhood, that a prerequisite for being a personhood is basically being white. It's only the European tier, the sort of top tier, who have what it takes to become full persons. And Asians, one rung below Europeans, blacks, one rung below that, Native Americans, these are the tiers even if they're human, they're not full persons.
The Enlightenment is a two-edged sword. It provided the basis for an argument for the social and political equality of all men, but at the same time, it provided the opportunity to look at human beings not as children of God, but as varieties of animal.
So if you decide that certain human beings are not human, they don't belong to the same species, then of course they don't have any right to sign contracts, and they can't be part of the social contract that forms your political system. And that's exactly what happens in these early democracies, is that blacks don't have any voting rights.
Many of the philosophers writing this period, they played a crucial rationalizing role in justifying European imperialism, in justifying the domination of whites over people of color. So why is it then that these things are not more widely known? Why has the current establishment not taken up this issue? The marginalization of issues like this sort of goes in tandem with the sanitized view of mainstream philosophers. So that you represent Locke, you represent Kant, you represent Hegel, you represent these people in ways that does not address the sort of racist dimensions of their thought, and that sort of contributes to a picture of the modern period from which race has been whitewashed out.
In the name of their Majesties Ferdinand and Isabella, King and Queen of Castile, Leon and Aragon, I now take possession of this land and name it San Salvador.
In spite of the atrocities perpetrated by the Spanish and Portuguese after the discovery of the New World, the colonizers eventually developed a society that allowed Europeans to mix with Indians on a scale that was unthinkable in French and English North America. But in the South, it was expedient for the settlers. They had to multiply or die out because there just weren't enough of them to go round.
The Spanish had a very different understanding of the Indians than the British did. I think from the earliest moments of settlement, Spaniards tended to regard Indians as people that they could fold into their social system. Not because they were nicer people, the Spanish necessarily, but because for a variety of reasons there were fewer white people in Spanish America. Because Spain never colonized America with anything like the number of colonists that England and eventually Britain brought over. The number of Spaniards, peninsulares as they were known, people from the Iberian Peninsula that actually came to Latin America, was much, much smaller.
One sees emerging in the period of the Enlightenment, in the latter part of the 18th century, as abolitionism is beginning to take root in that part of the world as well, a much more vigorous form of mixed race interaction that you find in other parts of the world. It's a different tradition coming out of Southern European colonization, Portuguese on one hand, Spanish on the other, and out of this a greater willingness to engage in forms of mixed interaction, mixed intercourse, and identified and acknowledged mixed race populations emerging. And out of this you get, in the last 30 years, really 1760 to 1790, in Mexico City in particular, but you also get versions of this in Peru and elsewhere, of what comes to be called casta painting, mixed race painting, caste painting you might even call it, which characterizes in explicit classificatory terms, and after all classification is an emergent form of rationality of Enlightenment thinking. The casta painting lays out the forms of offspring that emerge from certain kinds of mixture between what they call Spaniard and Indian on the one hand, Spaniard and black on the other, in other words European or white with other racial forms, Indian and African, and then mixtures as well with the mixtures of the mixtures, so to speak. So you get various gradations, and you might even call it degradations, of racial mixing that go from mestizo and so on.
But the color lines were not rigidly drawn between just two races, but you had at least one intermediate race, mulattoes or brown people. The presence of the mulatto in those colonies, the importance of mulattoes in Brazil as an intermediate group, the importance of mestizos in Spanish colonies with a large Indian population, is something that I think does distinguish the United States with its basically two-category system. You're either white or you're black.
South America is very complex and fascinating. It's different, but it wasn't necessarily better. It's easy to be fooled by the system because you go there and you see blacks and whites among the poor mixing together, whereas they don't in the United States. Because what the U.S. did with this one-drop rule was to encourage a sense of solidarity among whites as a way of dividing them from blacks. And one reason you never had working-class solidarity in America is because the one-drop rule and the binary system of race is a powerful tool for dividing the working classes, between whites and blacks. And the lower down the system you go, the more economically vulnerable and marginal the white person is, the more he's inclined to be racist because it's the only way in which he has some status. He said, at least I'm not black. And so the white poor and the black poor are totally against each other. So it became a perfect system of division. Latin American societies are far more racist at the top than the United States. I mean, the Brazilian military brass is completely white. The Brazilian political elite is, until recently, completely white. Whereas in the United States, the higher up you go now, because of civil rights laws and so on, the more integrated the population, and the American political elite is thoroughly integrated. I mean, the Secretary of State is black. You know, the Congressional Black Caucus is very powerful. Part of the reason for this is that the way black Americans took over the one-drop rule and turned it to their own ends for mobilization and solidarity. Whereas in Brazil, they go on about their racial democracy. All they mean by that is that white men were going to bed with black women and not feeling guilty about it, and producing mixed kids whom they great beauty queens. But the system remained viciously unequal. Brazil is the most unequal society in the Western world, and blacks are completely at the bottom. So it's a pernicious system. It's apartheid without apartheid laws, and at the top it's thoroughly racist.
If contemporary democracies can be called racist, then it should come as no surprise that over 200 years ago, a very early democratic experiment in Sierra Leone went badly wrong. Freetown became the home of the black loyalists, ex-slaves who freed themselves by fighting for the British in the American War of Independence. But their freedom turned out to be very limited because of the dictates of their former British masters.
To some extent, what's interesting about Sierra Leone is how accidental the whole story is. These people, in a sense, have become refugees and have become British because they'd actually crossed the lines during the American Revolution to fight for the British. So in 1775, the British governor of Virginia said that if black people who were slaves would cross lines, would leave their plantations, leave the Americans, if you like, and fight for him, for the British, they'd win their freedom. But the British weren't committed in any deep way during the American Revolution to racial equality or even to emancipation. It was a strategic military move.
When this colony was established in 1787, it was meant to be a free colony. But for a variety of reasons, it didn't work that way. The problems with the colony inhabitants really came to the forefront with the arrival of the Nova Scotian settlers. These were blacks who had helped the British during the American War of Independence, and they had been promised some land in Nova Scotia. They were called the Black Loyalists. Many of the promises that the British made to them were never fulfilled.
The tragedy of Sierra Leone in the 1790s is the difficulty, the almost impossibility, I guess, for whites of letting black people run the colony. I mean, it was constantly run by or overseen by white people. And black people, I think, didn't think that's how it was going to work out. They imagined they'd have much, much more power and authority. They wouldn't just be electing constables, they'd be running the colony. And that didn't happen.
These Nova Scotian settlers that came here had all the resources that would enable them to govern themselves as an independent people. They had black pastors, they had black politicians who had mobilized them in Canada to move over to Sierra Leone. So they really had the human resource to be able to govern themselves as a free and independent people.
You have a view that emerges at the same time and fuels abolitionism, the claim that those who are not European or of European descent are historically immature by contrast with those who are European or European settlers. Europeans see themselves as having the obligation, the burden to civilize something that's still with us today. One sees it in relation to the invasion of Iraq, for example. We will come in and teach you how to govern yourselves because you haven't been able to govern yourselves hitherto.
It was really a great opportunity that was lost, because had these people been given the opportunity to govern themselves, it is possible that perhaps Sierra Leone would never have been colonized in the real sense of the word, and Sierra Leone could probably have been the first black African country to be free of colonial rule.
I believe there are a few events in my life which have not happened to many.
Olaudah Equiano, whose first slave name was Gustava Vasa, obtains his freedom in London and becomes a key figure in the abolitionist movement. His autobiography really becomes the transforming political document to the abolitionist movement.
Olaudah Equiano is just one of the great campaigners consigned to the margins of history, while William Wilberforce is represented as the all-conquering hero who abolished slavery. However, no matter which great abolitionist you choose, you will find even greater forces behind them, from the radical Christianity of the Quakers to the workers forming what would become the trades union movement.
The other thing about Equiano was he's the one who connected the artisans of the London Corresponding Society in 1792. He connected them with the steel workers, the coal miners, and the factory workers of Sheffield. And it was this conjunction of the industrial proletariat and the artisans of London, which historians have often seen as the beginning of the English working class as a whole. But it was Olaudah Equiano who had brought them together.
The period where you see the most solidarity between enslaved Africans and the white working class, in Britain anyway, I think were the early years of the abolition movement. Starting in the late 1780s, hundreds of thousands of Britons signed petitions to Parliament against the slave trade. And amazingly, a lot of these petitions came from workers. There were 769 metal workers in Sheffield who signed a remarkable petition to Parliament that said, in effect, you might expect us to be in favor of the slave trade because we sell a lot of the wares we make to the captains of slave ships who use them as trading goods to buy slaves in Africa, but we want to express our solidarity with our African brethren, and we are told that they do not wish to be slaves.
It's a very slow movement, a kind of shifting of the kind of tectonic plates underneath Western life, late 18th century. And the shift is, Enlightenment writing and kind of changes in theological views. But those small tectonic changes produce tremendous changes above. And one of the things that they do is to open to question the very existence of the slave trade and slavery.
The decisive event that affected all of culture at the time, it has to be the first successful slave revolution in human history, and the successful break from European imperial powers, and that's the Haitian War of Independence that breaks out in August 1791.
It's one island, originally colonized by the Spanish, who effectively abandoned the western portion of the island, which the French squat on and eventually create their own colony on, which they call Saint-Domingue. The other thing I think just to remember is that this was the most successful colony in the Americas. I mean, we think of it today as it's a poorest nation in the Noah gets out. There are still waters all around, and so Noah decides he's going to set up a vineyard. Noah gets drunk. He has 3 sons, Japheth, Shem.
And out of this, a greater willingness to engage in forms of mixed interaction, mixed intercourse, and identified and acknowledged mixed race populations emerging. And out of this, you get, in the last 30 years, really 1760 to 17...
Marginal the white person is, the more he's inclined to be racist, because it's the only way in which he has some status. At least I'm not black. And so the white poor and the black poor are totally against each other. So it became a perfect system of division.
It was meant to be a free colony, but for a variety of reasons it didn't work that way. The problems with the colony inhabitants really came to the forefront with the arrival of the Nova Scotian settlers. These were blacks who had helped the British during the American War of Independence. These people were given the opportunity to govern themselves. It is possible that perhaps Sierra Leone would never have been colonized in the real sense of the word, and Sierra Leone could probably have been the first black African country to be free of colonial rule.
I believe there are a few events in my life which have not happened to many.
Olaudah Equiano, whose first slave name was Gustava Vasa, obtains his freedom in London and becomes a key figure in the abolitionist movement. His autobiography really becomes the transforming political document to the abolitionist movement.
Olaudah Equiano is just one of the great campaigners consigned to the margins of history, while William Wilberforce is represented as the all-conquering hero who abolished slavery. However, no matter which great abolitionists you choose, you will find even greater forces behind them, from the radical Christianity of the Quakers to the workers forming what would become the trades union movement.
The other thing about Equiano was he's the one who connected the artisans of the London Corresponding Society in 1792. He connected them with the steel workers, the coal miners, and the factory workers of Sheffield. And it was this conjunction of the industrial proletariat and the artisans of London, which historians have often seen as the beginning of the English working class as a whole. But it was Olaudah Equiano who had brought them together.
The period where you see the most solidarity between enslaved Africans and the white working class, in Britain anyway, I think were the early years of the abolition movement. Starting in the late 1780s, hundreds of thousands of Britons signed petitions to Parliament against the slave trade. And amazingly, a lot of these petitions came from workers. There were 769 metal workers in Sheffield who signed a remarkable petition to Parliament that said, in effect, you might expect us to be in favor of the slave trade because we sell a lot of the wares we make to the captains of slave ships who use them as trading goods to buy slaves in Africa, but we want to express our solidarity with our African brethren, and we are told that they do not wish to be slaves.
It's a very slow movement, a kind of shifting of the kind of tectonic plates underneath Western life, late 18th century. And the shift is, Enlightenment writing and kind of changes in theological views. But those small tectonic changes produce tremendous changes above. And one of the things that they do is to open to question the very existence of the slave trade and slavery.
The decisive event that affected all of culture at the time, it has to be the first successful slave revolution in human history, and the successful break from European imperial powers, and that's the Haitian War of Independence that breaks out in August 1791.
It's one island, originally colonized by the Spanish, who effectively abandoned the western portion of the island, which the French squat on and eventually create their own colony on, which they call Saint-Domingue. The other thing I think just to remember is that this was the most successful colony in the Americas. I mean, we think of it today as it's a poorest nation in the Americas. It's always talked about in those terms. At that time, it really was the richest site. It wasn't a nation of its own, but the richest colony in the Americas. The productivity was enormous. So for every, in a sense, empire in the Americas, in a sense, had their eye on it, would have loved to be able to take control of that sector of the economy. The beginning of the revolution happened really in the northern plain of Saint-Domingue, which really was this extremely industrialized zone in which there were these enormous sugar plantations. That's where the revolution began, and I think that's important to remember as well, that these plantations, which were some of the most industrial sites in the world at the time, in terms of the combination of both agriculture and production, generated this revolution. It came out of these plantations. The first stage of the revolution in 1791 was essentially about the slaves establishing control over these plantation domains. They transformed these wealthy plantations into their camps. One of the most interesting things that African historians have suggested about the revolution is that one of the reasons it may have succeeded is that there were huge numbers of men who had served in armies in Africa, who had been soldiers in Africa, who had been enslaved as a result of after participating in wars in Africa, and they brought their military experience to Saint-Domingue.
1793, Britain and France went to war. And Britain saw a chance to do two things in one go: to seize this very wealthy territory for itself, away from its enemy France, and to suppress the slave revolt before it could spread to Jamaica, which was very close by. Huge British force headed for Saint-Domingue, and for 5 years they fought the rebel slaves there who came under the leadership of Toussaint Louverture, the great Haitian leader, and they lost.
The attempted repression of that revolt involved hundreds of thousands of English boys and young men who were shipped off to Haiti. And there they will meet at the other end of a bayonet or the other end of a machete, the historic indignation of slaves fighting for freedom. And it's a huge trauma to the English people.
This was a case where an army of rebel slaves had defeated the army of the world's superpower, which was also the world's greatest slave trading nation. And it was a great shock.
The same can be said of the French, right, who have also, who later lost against essentially the same troops when they tried to reestablish slavery. The British defeat was, in a sense, presaged the defeat of Napoleon's troops that would follow a few years later. This revolution seemed kind of unthinkable for a lot of thinkers. The idea that this was happening in some ways, the idea that slaves would become generals and leaders of a revolution and would defeat these armies, it was just really hard to kind of fit into what they believed and what they saw. Now, a lot of people, of course, did think about it and brought it into their reality. But I think it challenged at the time and continues to challenge so many of our notions about where history is made, how history is made, who are the central actors in history. This is really one of the foundational moments in the history of not just the Americas politically, but in democratic theorizing of philosophy, of thinking about what rights are. So not only do you have a challenge to racist ideas that kind of consign people to the margins of history rather than placing them at the center, but you also have to rethink, I think, a lot of broader narratives about Western history.
What's interesting about the Haitian Revolution is that it's the only revolution with the only constitution that outlaws slavery and outlaws discrimination on the basis of race. Now that is historic. That's not in the Bill of Rights in the US. It's not part of the unwritten constitution of the British Empire. But it's part of that history of opposing racism, which actually comes from the enslaved themselves and not from the so-called humanitarian efforts of the abolitionist movement, which couldn't have been successful unless the slaves themselves were making slavery unstable.
The cost they paid for it was a terrible one, because there was this international boycott of Haiti, and in the end they had to pay reparations. So it's not that reparations were paid to the slaves, they had to pay reparations to the French for property expropriated and so forth. One of the reasons that Haiti is today the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere comes out of this, that they do this tremendous historical feat. So here's the only successful slave revolution in history, and basically, we are going to make sure that the contagion of your example does not spread to the United States, does not spread to Latin America. We're going to isolate you, we're going to quarantine you, we're going to make you pay.
Slavery itself isn't abolished in the British Islands until 1833. And indeed, there are still Africans carried across the Atlantic to Cuba and Brazil, illicitly, another more than 1 million. And slavery doesn't end in America till the Civil War, it doesn't end in Cuba and Brazil till 1888.
The sad truth of many situations like this, where there's a huge change on paper, doesn't change people's material conditions of life, because what happened was British slaves finally became officially free August 1st, 1838, but for almost all of them there was no work available except continuing to cut sugar cane, and now they suddenly found themselves having to pay rent to the planters for the miserable huts that they lived in and taxes to the government.
And there were also all kinds of other strategies used essentially to prevent former slaves from gaining access to land, to prevent them from gaining access access to the cities, to prevent them from gaining access to the professions and so forth. So there were all kinds of other strategies, all of them really largely tied together by a broader racial order that also kind of sustained a certain kind of subordination without slavery.
Many of the abolitionists could see that it was unjust and it was cruel to perpetuate a system where people were enslaved and degraded. But that did not necessarily mean that they saw those people who were degraded and enslaved as civilized like them. So there is a disconnect. And it's a disconnect that has to be marked and given some significance, because historically we often think that abolitionism was like an anti-racist movement. It wasn't an anti-racist movement. You know, Britain moved out of slavery straight into a wider and deeper colonial empire.
Important that the British try and temper their sense of themselves and the sense of their past with an awareness that their history is not all drums and trumpetry. It's not all the kind of glories. It comes with a kind of a rather dark stain to it, a rather dark side to it. What was Rule Britannia about? Written in the 1740s when Britain did rule the waves, but in the 1740s the British are carrying 40,000 Africans a year across the Atlantic. Never will be slaves. Britain never will be slaves.
Of course, the end of slavery opened up all kinds of possibilities for contestation that simply were not there before. So I think the change was crucial, and ex-slaves mobilized political institutions, legal institutions, religious institutions, and were able to do so and kind of push forward. But it is striking, I think, that in a sense the struggle to really bring about a complete end or complete erasure of all the effects and legacies of slavery is still continuing in a lot of ways.
The Chancellor Gordon Brown has come to India to talk about trade and jobs, but instead he's having to reassure his hosts that Britain's not a racist country.
I think we want to send a message, as I know most British people, that we are a nation of fairness and tolerance, and that is how I think most of the world want to understand it.
The fear was that a row about Britain's past, if you like, about attitudes that many people thought should have gone and had gone, might actually hamper our future.
Wow, may I tell you, man? May I tell you? I don't know why all these things can't depend on TV them in Jamaica. I mean, the in-depth analysis and the in-depth investigation into racism perpetuated especially by the British against not only black people but all people who wasn't white, are supposed to be white. It really, I mean, when you hear them take you into Shakespeare, who Shakespeare was involved in companies that was moving Africans. Them take you into the South American, the Spaniards, right up to the 80 Asian Revolution, where disrupt the whole perspective of slaves now moving against one of the most powerful countries militarily and win, and had to pay a price for that up to this day. And when people hear we attack certain things, they make it sound like we don't know what we are saying. And here is a documentary done by English people about their wickedness and cruelty. That's why we say the children of these slave masters is saying some things, where we have to look on it. We have to look on it. Because hear the man tell you, say, is it Kinwa, what is spell that word? EQUANO. That African who help in so many ways. We hardly hear about Wilberforce all the while. When we were at school, I never know about this black brother. It's when I start to read now and I realize, but wait, the black brother mix up in this thing here. And then we have a brother named Cinque. I think it's C-I-N-Q-U-E, Cinque, who hijacked a ship to go back to Africa. This was an African, a slave on the ship. Was heading to Sierra Leone. You hear the mention Sierra Leone many times in the documentary. But it's really amazing how the education is there for we get it. But other things take up the space. Because if we had known what we know now, then things would be totally different. So them talk about racism. You know, I just like to say, until the philosophy that all one race superior and the other inferior. You know, we always ask the question, what is the philosophy that Haile Selassie is talking about in that famous speech that Bob Marley recorded? The philosophy is racism and white supremacy. Racism is a philosophy, and if you listen to the documentary carefully, you realize that it is a philosophy that's set up by Europeans to show them might over people who is not of their color or their race. That philosophy holding one race superior and the other inferior, and claiming that the other race is less than a human being. Less than a human being. And you have, in this modern time, that still exists in the hearts and the DNA of a whole heap of Europeans. In the DNA. People take these things lightly, you know, but as we said at the beginning, we need to understand our Africanness, because our Africanness was what made us human, and in that humanity we will again find our divinity. And unless we find that Africanness, we will continue trying to do the same thing the same way all the while and expect to get a different result. And if we look on the condition that we are in now, whether it's in America, whether we're in Europe, or whether we're in the Caribbean, we look on the state of African people. How can we truly say that the educational system, the political system, the economical system, and the religious system is working in our favor or in humanity's favor? Look at it, after so much years, hundreds of years, and we still there follow that plan that is getting rid of us as a people, slowly but surely. And when I say slow again, quick, because now them quick knit. We can see that now the food now, where our children are dying from disease that is their grandparents should be dying from. And now we see grandparents burying grandchildren. Grandparents burying grandchildren. Because we're using remote, where our children are dying from disease that is their grandparents should be dying from. And now we see grandparents burying grandchildren. Grandparents burying grandchildren. Because we're using remote as the funeral procession to our belly. And it get lost in the sky. So we're looking in the sky for the divinity. We're looking in the sky for a savior. And you can't tell most black people, say no man nah come save them from this thing where them call now the system and white supremacy. Can't tell no black people that because them have said them think they are fool thing you talk about. And Jesus Christ is the only saving grace. Look on the conditions of black people under the Jesus Christ saving grace. Look on the conditions of black people. Look who is into that more than everybody else. Because you know, them trick you know, because them are sure we say, yeah, but you see, because you're worldly, but you must wait. When we die, that's what you must talk about. Your reward is in heaven. And everybody have them reward in earth. And we are waiting for God to get reward. Look upon the nations around us. Marcus Garvey tell you must look upon the nations. Look upon the Jews. Marcus Garvey talk about the Jews. We have been tricked and we find blissfulness in the ignorance of the trickery. This is the cutting edge on RFM. We'll take some call, you know. Yes, we'll take some call. So, I don't know. The documentary is a eye-opener, you know. That documentary is an eye-opener in terms of just a historical perspective of this thing called racism. Racism is a philosophy that say one race is using its power over a next race in determining the socio-political, religious, cultural way, life of a next race. Racism is what a next race use, not what an individual use. Racism is what a next race use to manipulate a next race by way of power, political power, social power, religious power, cultural power, economical power. That is what racism is. Racism is not because you just say, boy, I don't like that man there. That is prejudice. And we must not confuse racism with prejudice. Never make no one tell you that a person who is prejudiced is a racist. Because sometimes, you see, it's like when Usain Bolt run, everybody is prejudiced for their country and prejudice against the other country. You don't want the other country beat your country. You don't want, when you play cricket, Britain beat England, or England beat the West Indies. And you have all sorts of prejudices in that scenario. When two boxers meet, a black and a white boxer, even though you don't know who the black boxer is or the white boxer is, your innate thinking say you want the black boxer win. It's not that you hate white people because you want the black boxer win. But there's a certain prejudice in that scenario. It's not a racist scenario, it's a prejudice. It's just that. Racism is what we have to contend with. If a black man say him don't like an ex-black man, that is not racism. Black man can't racist against black people. That is not racism. That is prejudice. If a black man say him don't like white man, I don't know. That is not racism. That is not racism, because I don't know if no black person can decide, not black person, any group of black people can decide the outcome politically, socially, economically of any group of Europeans. I don't know of that. I don't know which group of black people can decide the political, social, economical structure of any group of white people. But the reversal is true and has been so for hundreds of years, where white people decide the political, social, economical structure of people of color. So people mix up these things. When you hear a man stand up for him race, you say him is racist. Maybe him is racial, but him not necessarily be racist. How can you hate people? You can't hate people. You can hate people, but it don't make no sense. You hate people. And I say, but you must understand, our group of people develop a philosophy that all one race superior and the other inferior. That is where the documentary talk about. A group of people on earth, because of them color, develop a philosophy that all one race superior and the other inferior. And until there's no longer first class and second class citizen, until the color of a man's skin is of no significance than the color of his eyes, we Africans will fight if it is necessary, because we are confident in the victory of good over evil. The words of Emperor Haile Selassie I. That philosophy is where the doctrine, the documentary I talk about, that philosophy of racism created to develop economical wealth against people of color. Economical wealth against people of color. We have to understand how that fits into the whole process of where we are today. Cutting edge.
Yes, Muta.
Blessed man.
I tell you, me quicker than you see and Bolt are just that quick.
the first one.
Congratulations to the 30-year-old man now from Trelawney, you know, and 9 gold, 3 Olympics. Yes, and Shelley and Fraser and Elaine Thompson from Banana Bottom and McLeod from Sanganetina, Clarendon, and all of the GA team, you know what I mean?
Yeah, man, them look good, man, them look good.
And you notice whether states are Jamaica, Trinidad and thing, the overwhelming predominance of the winners, whether gold, silver, or bronze, are Africans.
Yeah. Yeah, well.
Are the African race.
But all the Chinaman to have Jamaican blood in him there. The China people already that win up. You didn't know that? Say, when I'm parents them come from Jamaica, yeah.
No.
Yeah, that's serious things. But really and truly, if you look on the whole of the race them, the black people are not the race them, man. Black people.
Exactly. And I want to tell you something. It's a wicked form of hypocrisy the Americans and the British practice against the Russians, you know. As if they don't do cheating and that type of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but all of them man, the way them put for run against Usain Bolt, not drug is them to man.
Yes, exactly. So it's hypocrisy against the Russians and that type of thing. But you know, I want to heal up my brethren and your teacher and inspirer to frame to differently. Laxi Comrie, because my phone I talked to him about 2 days ago after many months. We weren't in touch, you know what I mean?
Yeah. You used to feel said dead Sunday.
Who?
Deadly Edley, man. The saxophonist.
Hey, rotted.
Him dead Sunday, man.
Sorry to hear that, because as a producer, Mandingo is Deadly playing alto sax on my recordings. Every little thing around to Babylon, generally, because alto sax.
Him play Bamba Ball the first song, Judge Not.
Yes.
Dancing mood and all them songs there. Play
yeah, man. Yeah. Really, you know, condolences is in play alto sax and all of my tune them all with the Ellis and thing. And in brethren to Cedric Brooks play tenor sax and Vingard Dandy Jr. play the trombone, you know. So it's only been up the 3 hands, man, them we play for me at Channel 1 studio. You know, so the condolences, really sorry for hear that, man, and I have to do a tribute to him, you know. And I want to heal up the people them, you know, Birmingham strong, because this coming Sunday, the 28th of August, the African Caribbean Self-Help Organization, which is about 50 years old, and the Pan-African Congress movement, they'll be having a conference called Marcus Garvey Returns, Sunday the 28th of August, where I will be one of 2 guest speakers. And there's a brother who is the Deputy President of the Pan-Africanist Congress of South Africa, Tanzania, by the name of Sibo Sio, who he will be speaking, and I will be speaking as Mandingo, and I will be talking about Marcus Garvey as it relates to African identity, economic empowerment for we as African people, and the role, as you always play for your show and talk about, the role of religion, both in terms of mentally enslaving our people and also to use it as a tool for free our people, as Marcus Garvey said.
You don't listen to the program? You never get to hear it?
No, never get to hear it, but Cowboy from SLR Radio, I couldn't get to hear it due to some gremlin thing. Cowboy at SLR Radio will always transmit all of your shows live. Told me that you were playing a tape about how the racist Europeans them invade
especially England. Especially England. It's England mostly that concentrate on how racism developed in England.
Yes, with the pilgrim fathers, them with the Mayflower and them thing there.
Yeah, man, it really go in depth to the whole thing, you know, and show you right up to the Haitian Revolution and how the Haitian Revolution really discomfort them.
Yes.
What the brother name? Pronounce the brother name Iquano, whatsoever his name. You know the African brother there, I think our name spell Equano. I don't know if it's the name spell.
Oluwado Equiano.
Equiano, yeah, Equiano.
Yes. Who wrote book about experiences, yes.
Well, it has shown in the documentary how significant and important him was in the abolition of slavery, and then them put Wilberforce up front.
Yes, that's true. As a matter of fact, when I used to go Campion College before Kingston Technical doing history, they showed a bit of him in the history, you know, talking about his role. And if my memory serves me right too, he was from the Igbo nation in what is now called Nigeria.
Yeah.
And he was captured. It was an Igbo, you know, which my father, mother people, some of them are Igbo people, you know. And you notice in Jamaica, some people have some so-called nicknames. Chuku.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes, but his man, you know, the name Chuku is an Igbo word meaning the creator, you know. So anytime people hear people say, and like the Yoruba word dodo, when the time enough of our people at Jamaica, I said dodo. Dodo just mean black in Yoruba.
Yeah.
You know?
But really why we mentioned Iquano was that in the documentary, it mentioned him alongside Wilberforce. And the part when playing in England. And him also show you in the documentary that Shakespeare had business interests in some of the companies them that was transporting slaves in the Caribbean.
That was the enslave our people.
Shakespeare, William Shakespeare.
Yes, William Shakespeare. Well, it's no surprise, you know, because check it. Shakespeare was around at the same time as Elizabeth I.
Yes, and
the so-called Virgin Queen. And remember, she invested with John Hawkins.
Yes.
With all the shit, the SS Jesus of Lubeck and them things.
Sierra Leone, in Sierra Leone, yeah.
Yes, so therefore, them all benefited and were involved in the enslavement of our people, you know, all of them. And it is significant to note that the racism put in, as you say, Wilberforce, or we call him Wilberforce, ahead of a man like Equiano, who actually wrote on that type of thing. But it's a typical racism where, but it's like in the Caribbean, they don't want to acknowledge the fact that is the constant rebellions of our African people in the islands.
That caused slavery for
made our people free, precisely.
Yeah, they want to
the constant rebellions, and the last one that break the back of it was the one with Sam Sharp and others in Western Jamaica.
Yeah, and them did lose money. Them couldn't take it no longer. Them did lose money.
Yes, because them system built on the enslavement of our people on the sugar cane. So if our people constantly revolting and killing them, then them can't make any money. And they never have, and they couldn't hold our people in bondage. And you know, the significance of Haiti lies in the fact that when the revolution in Haiti, which started with Bookman, Dirty Bookman from Jamaica as a voodoo priest and thing, when our people burnt the cane fields in Haiti, Africans in Jamaica, because Jamaica is pretty near to Haiti, as you know, they could see the cane thing, the smoke and thing up in the sky, you know. Yes, because it's not far Haiti and Jamaica, and so English and the French and the rest of Dutch and so, they were petrified. Because the example that Haiti set was so dangerous to inspire our people to keep on fighting.
Yeah, one of the
and this is why the Spanish come in and they were defeated, and the Spanish who were on the Dominican Republic side were also defeated.
One of the interesting things what the brothers say is that when the Haitian them got them freedom, they wrote that slavery is out. It was them outlaw slavery. Where the abolitionists them in England never say outlaw slavery. Even though them the claim say the English fight for emancipation, them never outlaw it. Them never outlaw it. The Haitian them outlaw it.
Precisely.
Yeah, so that is a very important thing, you know. That's a very important thing. That is black people come outlaw slavery.
In a nutshell, it is our African people in Haiti and the rest of the Caribbean who outlaw and abolish slavery. By the constant fighting, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I must bring up this topic in my speech and in Birmingham this Sunday at 4 p.m. And I want to hail up twin brothers and others in Birmingham who will listen to you all the while too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's going to be 4 p.m. at the Store Community Center, 48 Chapel Street in Handsworth, Birmingham and Birmingham. See? This Saturday the 28th, which also happens to be Carnival, the 50th anniversary of Carnival in Notting Hill Gate this coming weekend.
50th?
Yes.
Well, a long time it ago, man.
Yes, from 1966, you know. You know, from 1966. I mean, Claudia Jones from Trinidad and my mother's cousin, Amy, Ashwood Garvey, they had some concert in about 1959 near King's Cross in St. Pancras Hall.
Yeah.
But as you know, Carnival is a street thing.
Yeah,
Carnival is not
Indoor,
in any hall and
indoor,
that type of thing. But that led as a kind of pioneering type of thing, that Carnival, which started now in Ladbroke Grove, North Kensington, West London in 1966, you know. And what made Carnival so successful is in about 1973 when Jamaican sound system is invented by I&I, became involved in Carnival. That is what swelled it and make so many people come to Carnival.
Yeah.
The injection of African Jamaican invention sound system and that kind of thing, you know. You know. Yeah, so how was I wasn't able to listen to last Sunday.
No, man, you should have listened, man. It's the biggest one ever. It's the biggest one ever.
Because you had four speakers.
Yeah, I tell you, man, it was
one of some of them, some from the States, and I think one from Trinidad.
Yeah, David Mohammed.
Yes.
But I tell you, man, it was something else, man. It was really something else, and you know, we don't usually perform in Jamaica. We did perform with my band, so that was like something else, though, you know, like. But it was a hard day
because I saw in the advertisement that you were gonna be performing,
you know. Yeah, I tell you, man, it was amazing, man. Trust me, it was amazing.
So about how many people you would say were here? So? Minimum.
You know, all right, between inside and outside, would have gone in 9,000 people, you know.
That's very good. So
because the whole road block off, the whole road. My musician them have a part and car way up in a poetry house there. But it was massive, man, massive. And the biggest one, trust me, the biggest one so far. The biggest market.
Well, that is good. That is good. So it's go for sure say the Garvey message is still going through.
The people them sit down and listen to the speaker them. You know, James Small was here. Umar Johnson was here. You know, so that was really something else to hear the speakers them, all the people them. I mean, really attention, you know, and it was good, man. I tell you, it was good. We want to give our thanks to RFM to really project that. Them way there. But you know, we said we have a tentative date in England, you know, the 1st to the 6th of November, you know. We want to tell the people in England that the 1st to the 6th of November, we're going to come. At this point in time, that is where it's set.
In other words, tentatively, the 1st to the 6th of November.
Yeah, we're going to reach in England there.
All right, 5th November, my mother's Earth Strong birthday. So, all right. So, I'll definitely bear that in mind and remind people.
We keep saying it, man. We keep saying it.
Yes, and as a matter of fact, I put out the second edition of the Reggae World paper August and September, and it was dedicated front page with an article about Marcus Garvey and the 8-point solution as summarized by his son, the teacher, Marcus Garvey Jr., you know. You know, so that really is a color thing. I'm gonna email because it's in email as well as hard printed copies. So I'm gonna email it to you also. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
For real. And I send on WhatsApp a tune by my son about mothers, tribute to mothers.
Okay.
By my son whose artist name is Grizzly.
All right, we have to move. Cutting edge, yes.
Mr. Motor.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Morning, sir.
Long time listener, first time caller.
Okay.
Listening from about 90 something. Say how much.
Well, first you call?
First time I call.
I wonder why you call tonight, you know. I wonder why you call tonight, you know, especially.
I call for saying regards to the Marcus Garvey tribute that kept on Sunday.
Yeah.
I must say it is indeed a success and a wonderful. I wasn't there, but depending on what I have heard from the airwaves.
Okay.
Yeah. I was I fully enjoyed it. And
on the radio, you enjoyed it?
Yeah, man. It was very much interesting. I couldn't get to make it there, but because duty call and all that.
Okay, so
it was very much intriguing. So I enjoyed every moment. There's a pity that I couldn't get some more of it.
So up to when you did listen? Up to when you heard?
We listened up until sometime, I think it was after 6 or after 6 when it come off the air.
Oh, no.
I listen from that, man. Because in the morning where we was neither when I get the coverage.
Come out 8 to 6 and me go on after 8 o'clock, 29, and people say them did I listen to it?
No, man, I tell you, so when them started the news, you know, here, then Matrix come in and...
Yeah, but it did come back, man, because people tell me, say them hear me on the radio. I mean, unless them I tell lies still, but...
Well, me not say a lie, because in between them probably have coverage, but just because me as a man, I will just like your program, Andrea Williams, my way tuning, you understand?
Yeah.
So from if I not say no longer...
change channel. Yeah, all right.
But we just want to show them why it was a program indeed that well put together and
man.
But when me really have to say again, Mr. Mota, it is bad for us as a nation where I look to go forward. Because you see a program like that, not Mota, I don't hear it advertised or it mentioned on no other media.
But the area, if I'm a keep it, you're not going to hear it advertised on the other.
No, that Mr. Mota, it shouldn't be like that. That's something of Mr. Garvey, one shouldn't be afraid to highlight it. It's one thing, not because it's not their media house.
Yeah, because you don't big up the other media house. That's how it's going out of business, you know.
Well, the business
if RJR did I keep something about Margot, if RJR did have a function that keep out Marcus Garvey in a RJR, I don't see RFM would advertise it.
I don't know. I'm not saying that they should have broadcasted it live, you know.
Yeah, you have to advertise it.
I'm not saying, you know, me. I say, well, if it's even in a newscast or something like that, is one thing.
Well, I think they should have get at the newscast, given that foreign people in there where.
Then that's what I'm saying.
I think them should have mentioned it at them news still.
That is my point. I expect them going to carry it live, but me say at least in the newscast. It's one thing, even on TV news. It's one thing.
I agree with that, Sim. I agree with that part there.
You understand? That is not good for us as a nation who look to go forward, then, my brother. It's one thing, not because it's a different media houses or whatsoever. We are talking about the progressiveness and the positiveness of life now. Yeah. Because all are we supposed to come together then as a nation and as a people, ain't it?
Yeah, but we are talking about business and no bridging. That a business, man.
Eh?
Business are business. You can't say no because a man advertise the next man thing for the next feature is not coming together. It's business. No. You call it business.
No, I literally have to advertise it, you know, Mr. Mota. I'm literally looking forward to get it, to hear it, and hearing it advertised. But now, if you have something which is such of such great magnitude, that's one thing.
Yeah. Me understand the dilemma still.
At least something that could be highlighted so that other persons can be aware. That's one thing.
Yeah.
But in other words, still it was good. And I fully enjoyed it, and trust me, I like the work that you people over Irish and there is doing.
All right, sir.
And trust me, I always tune in your program, don't miss me at night.
Well, if you tell me, say from 19 something, you never call it, boy, I tell you.
No, I never call it.
That is something else.
The first time I listened to your program was the night when you interview Kid Ralph.
Friday night, at the first big interview me do.
Yeah, I understand.
All right.
From there, I've been listening to the program. So, more to say, boy, continue doing the good works that you people are doing, and I hope that it will break boundaries and tear down barriers and
get
the good word across to the masses of people who is in the dark and need to be in the light.
Give thanks, Virgin, Harry.
Keep up on the good work, yes, sir.
Yeah. Yes, the man say, man, listen from the 90s, and if you talk about Kid Ralph, you know it's a long time that. Believe you be, tell us escape this judgment in this time, yes. Yeah.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, I'm calling to your program. I have a burning issue today that I would really like you to help me. Sorry that have a matter in front of court where the child, they want to take it away to give it to some white people.
They want to what?
Take my child.
Who want to take your child?
The father took the child away.
Yeah.
And bring it to the white people then. And the matter is now in front of the court.
Yeah.
Because I'm not getting any results from the court.
So you go get a lawyer? You have a lawyer?
No.
They don't get a lawyer, man?
No, well, I don't have any money to get the lawyer. That is it. So that is the only way I think to say if I make it to be known or something.
Yeah, but no, them overnight, you know, the liar, them asleep.
Repeat that for me?
Them overnight, the liar, them good asleep. I better you call me tomorrow and talk and say it and mention it.
Okay, then.
Because them
so
was
what time tomorrow think I can call in the day when you have
the program, the second razor, yeah.
Okay,
but what you expect for happen? May I ask you, what you expect for happen? Somebody
I expect that the probation people, them do the report and all of these things, and they see that I'm fit for the child. I think to say the matter would have all right and everything, and I'll get the child.
So the father fight it? The father fight it?
Yes, the father is fighting.
The father have a liar?
No.
So it'll go through the court just straight up?
It is going through the court right now, but I'm not getting any justice from it.
Yeah. So what the lie? What them say? You're not fit to have the child?
The report said that I'm fit to have the child.
Oh, them say you're fit to have the child?
Yes, but it's like a rigmarole I'm getting from the court.
Okay.
I went to court even today, and the charge was done today, and there's no the report don't finish, and it's just putting it off.
Well, you know, said long as so them court thing they stay, but if the court rule in your favor, you will get him. If the court is ruling in your favor, right?
Well, I should think so, yes.
No, not should think. May I ask if the court ruling in your favor? Is that a yes or no?
Yes.
So the court it done then. The court case done.
Well, today when we go to court, because from the third.
Wait now. May I ask if the court's finished?
No.
Then if the court's not finished, you say them ruling in your favor and it's done. Because
that's the reason why I said that. Because one of the time when we go to court, right, the judge said to me, to get the child, I'm the one. That's what the report is saying, I'm the one to get the child. And now that everyone come, like the father knows, as when I say father, they go back to my court. And now the father knows back to my court. The judge, I'm going to make me know, so she never tell me, so. Right?
So wait no. The father have the child?
No, the father don't have the child. The father gives the child to those people in St. Mary.
Who's the people in St. Mary? The father, woman, or the people?
Nothing to the father, those are strangers.
The father give the child to strangers?
Yes, Musa.
Stranger to you, but not stranger to him?
There's no connection there.
Between you,
he's an artist. The father is an artist.
No, wait now. The father give the child to somebody who him know.
Yes.
So may I ask you now, say, the court say that you must have the child. That's what you are saying?
Yes, Musa.
So if the court say you must have the child now, you are saying now that the court now still a go around the bush with you?
Yes, Musa.
Well, I don't know. The court could tell you that you must have the child. Why you think them a go around the bush with you?
All right. Because the matter was to finalize from the third.
Yeah.
Right? And all I know, because even today I went to court, Judge keep on said next week I'm to go back to court. Right?
Where might you go back to court for? Where you go back?
I'm all the way from Mason, you know.
Yeah, but where you go back to court for? Where I'm saying you must come back? No, exactly.
The judge know, like the judge say, I will decide what to done.
Okay.
To be done.
Oh, she will bring a verdict. She will bring down the verdict.
Well, she did say today.
Yeah,
and then she put off it again.
Oh, I saw them stay. And you gonna go again and then put it off again. But from she say you must That means, all right, you see, you tell me something when I get mixed up now. You say them say you must have the child. Them say you must have the child.
Yes, that's what the judge
So when
said.
you go back to court for now, for God's sake, what the judge are going to say to you when you go back to court now? What them supposed to say to you?
That no one know. So that is why I'm speaking to me. I go around the bushes and beat around the bushes. Because they even go behind the back and take out passport and something to the island.
The court?
Yes.
The court go take out passport for the people.
No, the father took out passport to take a little while out of the island without my knowing that the little boy can run and
so the court know that? The court know that?
Yes, we mention it in court.
And when
the little boy, because the little boy decides to want to come spend a holiday with me.
Yeah, no, when them said to you, when them said to you, when you tell them about the passport.
Well, when we say it in court, it's like, to me, it don't mean nothing. It don't mean nothing.
So you think the court and them and the father conspire against you?
Yes, Muta, that's what me think in my view.
Oh, all right, here we are going to call me back later and talk about it.
What time later, Muta?
Then me not tell you, man, you know, listen to continue stepping with all the while, man, from 2 to 5:45. Call me back later and talk about it, yeah?
Thanks, Muta.
Yeah, all right. That sound like a day talk, you know, because, you know, relevant hard touch. Nobody know there, you know. We can't call nobody to find out nothing. We can't call nobody to find out nothing. So I just want somebody me I listen to. And now hear the other side. Okay. So we are continuing the journey. Yes, Cutting Edge.
Muta.
Blessed.
I have been listening to you every Wednesday night for years. But tonight, I'm 94 and believe me, I'm still learning. Tonight was wonderful.
Mama Shima. Good afternoon, ma'am. Good morning, good night, good evening.
Good morning, darling. It was really wonderful.
Thank you very much.
I'm still learning. 94, I'm still learning.
Okay. You was listening to the documentary?
It was wonderful.
Yes.
It was wonderful. This is Sister Samad, you know.
No, I know, man. I know it's you, man. Your voice you have a unique voice, you know.
Really?
Yeah, man. You can't hide your voice, man.
Oh, listen. This was really wonderful. Because, you know, pieces and bits of it I've learned over the years.
Yes.
But you put them all together tonight.
Yes.
And it was really wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're a good teacher, you know.
Oh, yes?
Yeah, good teacher.
I didn't see you down, as the first, I didn't see you down here, man.
To REFM?
Yes, Sunday.
Oh, darling, I couldn't make it. At 94, your legs don't hold up anymore.
Okay, all right.
But I heard it. I heard it from the beginning to the end.
On the radio, okay.
On the radio. I had every radio in the house on, making sure I didn't miss a word.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And God bless you, darling.
Yeah, man. Thank you for staying up so late listening, man. 94 years old and at 2 o'clock you still listening to the Cutting Edge.
Yes.
That is saying a lot for the Cutting Edge, man. Give thanks.
That's in the day.
Yes, give thanks.
I listen to that too.
Okay, all right. Give thanks.
Okay, darling.
Yeah, man.
Thank you.
Yeah. 94 years old, you know. I'll stand up in the Cutting Edge. I tell you. Tell you what a sweet music, yes. Cutting Edge.
Greetings.
Blessed man.
Yeah, man. I'll forgive a special honor and respect to one of Jamaica. The most honored woman in Jamaica right now, as far as I'm concerned. Kabu.
Okay. Yeah, man, I tell you.
I give thanks to IRFM.
Yeah.
For the role in educating, trying to liberate the black masses over the years.
And it's not an easy thing either, you know.
Okay.
It's not easy at all.
I'm saying again, Marcus said, what a grand and glorious day when all the scattered sons and daughters of Africa would come together in this oneness. And right now, I'm praying and hoping and wondering how long it can take the Jamaican black people come together and establish a black government to take care of them affairs so that we can be a satellite like Walt and the other athletes, because within the diaspora, Jamaica is the shining star. And we should rise up also politically. Just like Haiti did in the 18th century. It's our time now. Rise up.
I agree with you.
And liberate black people.
Alright, give thanks, brethren. Give thanks. I tell you, 1 o'clock gone and none of the whole them no come out tonight. Oh gosh, man, it was sweet. It was sweet, man. 1 o'clock, 12 to 2, and no whole no come out. Operator, I love your word. I know Jesus love like a children, man. Now tell you what I Now when me and Sister Simard call something to 2 and tell me say she'll listen now, you know. And Sister Simard, a 94-year-old, black straight through from Marcus Garvey time until now. And she tell me say she'll listen cutting edge right now. And she was pleased with it. May I tell you? We don't want no more validation in the night, yeah. I think they don't deal with tricks. Matrix say my tricks. The only thing I say, I'm not deal with tricks, I know me hear my same name tricks. But you change up on me hard, man. Oh, that's why you call it them tricks now. Why it's easy for you to change yourself, sir. May I tell you anyway, give thanks. Well, say, we're there a little more. Stepping Razor, the art of war, from 2 to 5:45. I gone, you know, I gone.